With all of the car communities that I visit these days, whenever somebody tells me that they're looking to buy an affordable, fun-to-drive, lightweight, rear-wheel drive convertible sports car, I always tell them there's only one option. What's good, everybody, and welcome back to The Driveway, where this week we have been whizzing about all over town in the 2020 Mazda MX-5 RF, the hardtop version of Mazda's popular convertible sports car. Now, if you're the type of person who likes a little bit more refinement, but still wants that same wind in the hair thrill as all the other open top cars out there, then stay tuned, because in this review we're going to take this bad boy for a spin and show you everything you need to know about why the answer has been, still is, and always will be Miata. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so welcome to the 2020 Mazda MX-5 RF, or the Miata RF to you and me. Now, I find it still hard to believe that I'm sitting here in this car because I have driven an infinite number of older Miatas, but this is actually the first time that I've ever gotten the new ND Miata out on the road. The only other times I've been able to experience this thing at all has been in showroom floors. So thank you Mazda for allowing us this gracious opportunity. And secondly, what a color for this car to be in. This beautiful, sumptuous soul red crystal, my favorite of all of Mazda's color palette. And I mean, if this color was a drink, I would be drinking it in by the gallon. Now, what I've also been drinking in by the gallon is the fact that this car is not as affordable as you might think. Sure, on the used market, you might be able to get one for a bit cheaper, but if you want to buy one brand new, well, prepare to shell out your checkbook, because the standard MSRP on this Grand Touring model that I have is $34,425, according to the lovely Moroni that Mazda has provided me. There's also a $600 charge for the Soul Red Crystal paint and $945 for the delivery, processing, and handling fee, all added up to a total MSRP on this example of $35,965. But when you think about the driving excitement and driving experience that this car delivers, the money factor seems a distant memory of the past. So the only thing for us to do now is put this baby in gear and take this sucker for a spin. So after having the MX-5 in my care for about a week now, there's only about one thing I can say. This $36,000 hardtop is nothing short of an oversized, overly expensive go-kart. And if you don't believe me, watch this. Oh, yeah! Woo-hoo-hoo! Holy sh**. Oh, man. I know the Miata is not the fastest thing in a straight line, but there is nothing fake about the way this car gets down the road. It's even so exciting I'm drooling on myself. That is so embarrassing. But oh my gosh. Thank you, Mazda. Thank you for still building such a wickedly fun sports car. And I don't mean just a convertible, a true sports car. Now, I mean, this thing doesn't even have a turbocharger attached to it. It has a motor that's basically out of the Mazda 3, just a basic 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-banger with direct injection, by the way. and it makes 181 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque, and it's pushing around a car that, with the hardtop, is about 2,800 pounds. And the power to weight ratio of just those numbers is nothing short of extraordinary. Now, if you can't keep your foot out of it, of course the miles per gallon is not going to be that great. But if you drive it gently, like I am now at 6th gear and, you know, about 50 miles an hour, you're looking at 26 miles per gallon in the city and 34 miles per gallon on the highway. Now, aside from that drool-inducing and eye-watering performance that this car is capable of, there are some other things about it that I'm actually quite pleased with. Number one, even as I sit here, I really don't have to raise my voice to talk to you guys. And yes, that does have something to do with the size of the cabin in here, but even as we take off, yes, the engine can be a little noisy. Yes, you will get a lot of buffeting when you have the top down, thanks to the hardtop roof panels back here, and you might get a squeak of wind noise through the cracks every once in a while, but it's actually quite, you know, silent in here. I wouldn't say it's a Rolls Royce, but I mean, still, it is surprisingly comfortable. And speaking of comfort, I can't go without saying how refined the chassis feel of this car really is. After driving all these other Miatas, and granted most of them were modified, this one feels a little bit softer than your typical Miata. Now, if you want the hardcore version, definitely go for the MX-5 Club, both soft top and hard top. But in this, I just find it so easy and so enjoyable to drive without feeling like my back is going to be shattered into a million pieces and my ears are going to be bleeding by the end of the trip. Now, of course, you can't go talking about a lightweight small convertible like this without talking about the way that it takes corners. We're going to go under this bridge here, see what's what. Hopefully there's nobody coming the other way. Oh man, this thing is pinpoint accurate. You don't even have to floor it to take it through a corner. But oh my goodness, you turn the steering wheel and it responds. It is not something that is going to be lazy when it comes to the steering. You turn it a little bit this way, that way, try to make a U-turn, it'll do it on a dime. So now it's the end of the day and you're probably wondering to yourself, is it really worth the $35,000 to buy one of these? On one hand, my heart says yes. The performance is exhilarating. For the money, this car, you can't really beat it as far as what it delivers, as far as having a just sports car-like feel. Oh. That right there, that smile, that is worth all the money in the world. So if you think you can spend 35 grand on a convertible and you want to smile like a jack-o'-lantern everywhere you go, by all means, where do I sign? Mazda, where do I sign, man? This is insane. But I'll tell you what else is insane is the looks of this car. So let's kind of tone it down for a second. Let's take a peek at the rest of this thing. So now that I've gotten my heart rate down a little bit from having so much fun driving this thing, I think the next best thing we can focus on is the way that this car looks. And of course, I am not just talking about my favorite aspect, which is the color of my test car this week, this delicious soul red crystal paintwork. Definitely the best color that I think Mazda has ever created in its entire history. And that says quite a lot when you're talking about just one tiny detail of one whole car. Now, speaking of details, I love the way the front of this car looks. A lot of the Miatas before that I've driven have definitely been accused, not only by myself, but others, as being, well, a little too feminine in most eyes. But if you look at things like the shape of the headlights, how slimmed down they are, they're nice and angular. This Grand Touring does have full LED headlights, with the exception of the turn signals. Those remain incandescent, but you have LED main beams, LED daytime running lights on the inner part of the headlight, as well as down here on the lower front fascia. And these are also auto leveling and adjusting, as well as auto high beam assist equipped. And I also really love this grille with almost kind of these little nostrils right here. And of course, these are fake. There is plastic behind them. I kind of wish they were real. Give that Skyactiv engine a little more of a chance to breathe. But still, just the look of it with these little splitters, almost like fangs, coming off of the front grille as well. Just all of the front details really have a much more aggressive appearance to them here. Now, if you also want to talk about being a proper Miata, you cannot deny that this is a seriously small car. From nose to tail, you're looking at 154 inches long for this retractable fastback version, which, in case you didn't know, that is what the RF in this car's title stands for. But as I'm standing here on the side, aside from still drinking in the paint color on this car, I also have been staring at these. The 17-inch dark gray finished aluminum alloy wheels that are standard here on my Grand Touring model. Underneath, you do have 4-wheel disc brakes. These are wrapped in proper Bridgestone Potenza rubber. And then also, one thing I failed to mention while I was driving is actually the suspension setup. We have a double wishbone suspension in front, independent multi-link suspension in the rear, and you also have a front suspension brace up front. And at the back, aiding in that traction, we have a limited slip differential back here as well, which means, like I was saying, this car will hang on in the corners just as good as you want it to. But as you come down the side features are nothing extraordinary. You have the side markers here on the front fenders, body-colored side view mirrors that are manually foldable. This car does come standard with blind spot monitoring and rear cross-traffic alert. Also does come with the government-mandated backup camera hidden on the back. And also, you do have Mazda's advanced keyless access system. So you do have Mazda's newer key here with all of the buttons hidden on the side. I love this key fob. So much more premium feeling compared to the key fobs of before. You have all the functions here: lock, unlock, open the trunk, and panic, with the releasable key blade hidden on the back side here. It's an actual physical blade that is hidden in the back of the key here. And to unlock and lock the vehicle, you just simply use the buttons hidden here on the door handles as well. And last but not least, as you come up towards the top, you do have the full power folding retractable hardtop. So this back piece actually folds up, then these two separate pieces will fold together into a separate hidden space here in the back, and thus it leaves you sort of a Targa-like option instead of a full open top convertible. So you have the piece that stays here, and then of course the windshield frame that stays here at the front. Now, as you slide past the slightly excessive haunches on the rear of this car, you get to a rear end design that is a little bit cuter than it is at the front. And I almost cringe when I say that word because I really had high praise for the design of this vehicle at the front. But you do have LED taillights back here. You do have the incandescent turn signals, but LED reversing lights, a very, very small little deck lid here with a shark fin antenna that is used for your AM, FM, and Sirius satellite radio. You don't get any form of backup sensors or anything like that, and the backup camera is this little bitty indention right here in the back bumper. And then of course you do have the single outlet twin tipped exhaust, which I must say for stock actually makes a pretty solid noise. Now, if the size of the trunk lid on this car is any indication, the MX-5 is by far one of the least practical cars you can find on the road. Though it does have a little bit more trunk space than most convertibles because, in essence, the trunk, or the top rather, does not fold into the trunk space itself like some of its competition. But when you actually do open the trunk, you realize there's not a whole lot going on back here. I mean, you just look at that little opening. It's about the size of maybe 2 backpacks or maybe a very small roller bag, but you're only looking at about 4.5 cubic feet of total cargo room back here. And as you can see, for this purpose, I've put the carpeted floor mats back here. But apart from that, if you're looking for a practical convertible, yes, you may be able to fit stuff back here, but some of that stuff may have to go into the passenger seat, assuming you don't have to have anyone riding with you. Now, as much praise as I gave the outside of this car, I have to give the biggest remarks of all to the MX-5's interior. Now, yes, I know every time I've reviewed a Mazda vehicle, I have always made big mentions about the interior, and the MX-5 here is no exception. The beautiful sand beige leather that I have on this car with these heated leather-bound seats, of course, they are not power adjustable. The objective of this car is not only to be fun, but also to save a lot of weight at the same time. So you have have manual adjustments for the distance, recline, and you even have a little click wheel here that allows you to raise the front of the seat up a little bit. But there's a lot of other touches that I really enjoy, like the paint matched door inserts here across the top. So it actually doesn't look like it's a big gap from the outer skin of the door to the inside. It almost looks like the paint continues on to the interior of this car before you get to the leather lined door panels that we have here. To be honest, there's actually not too many plastics in this car at all, despite all of the weight savings here. And of course, on the door, you do have your typical functions. You have your power mirrors, power locks, window locks, and dual power windows as well. But then you also have to look at the cabin itself. It is so driver focused. The functionality of this beautiful 3-spoke leather trim steering wheel, how there's not a whole lot of controls there in the center console or center stack. Everything is meant to be just enough for what you need. But again, this car is more about driving rather than luxury. Now, once you're inside the MX-5's cabin, you will notice just how small this car really is. And not only that, you'll notice how driver-focused everything is, like I was mentioning before. Now, if you're a taller person, I'm 6'1", just for example, I have the seat back as far as it can go and the steering wheel all the way out just to get a decent amount of wiggle room for my legs in here. As far as getting in, you will have to duck your head quite a bit. And despite the fact I have about an inch of headroom between my head and the ceiling, it is still very almost sardine can-like being in here. So it is a tight fit if you are a taller person, but like I was saying, everything else in here is about as simple as you can imagine. On the right of the steering wheel, just your cruise control. On the left, hands-free radio volume, hands-free Bluetooth, seek track buttons, and then of course you also have the button if you push in for the voice commands, and then the info button that can change all the functions over here on the thin film transistor display on the left-hand side of your gauge cluster. So you have your engine temperature, fuel gauge, odometer, and the adjustable part like your trip computer and average miles per gallon and distance to empty. Continuing the simplicity factor, you have a manual tilt and telescoping steering wheel. So you have the latch located just below the steering column itself. And then as you come over here to the left, this car does have a few advanced safety features. There's no radar cruise control or anything, but aside from the blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, this car does come with the lane departure warning with lane keep assist, as well as the traction control as well. But that's really it. There's just a bunch of other blank buttons over here. So again, nothing too much really to distract the driver from where I'm sitting. Now, if there's one thing that I would call pretty much the most high tech about this MX-5, it is the infotainment system. So we have a 7-inch display here, front and center in the middle, fixed in kind of this tablet-like fixture, which really isn't too much of a bother to me. It's right in my line of sight as I'm driving the car. But there are some benefits to this new system, which first off, it now has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so both types of cell phone users will be happy with this system. It is also now touchscreen. So instead of coming down here to the multi-function commander interface system with its random buttons, including the home button, the navigation button, which this car does come with a GPS navigation, and the audio function, everything up here is all touchscreen. So let's say I want to use the navigation. I just touch it, and now it brings up the full navigation screen. Now, the navigation system in this, I think it's still powered by Garmin. To be honest with you, I'm still not the biggest fan of it. I'd rather just use Google Maps or Waze through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. But coming back to everything else, I mean, you just have the generalized settings, your audio system with a 9-speaker Bose audio system, which we'll touch on here in a moment, general applications, that's how you get to the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and then of course, Bluetooth communication front and center. Now, of course, with the top down, you're going to want to be blasting some tunes in this car. And of course, like I was mentioning earlier, the infotainment system and everything in here does include a 9-speaker Bose premium audio system, which the speakers aren't just in the doors. They aren't just up on the A-pillars. You actually have these little perforated sections up here in the headrest. Those are speakers. So when you actually have this powered hard top down, you can still have the music playing in your ears thanks to the outputs on either side of your head. So let's push the volume button here and let's see what we get. Now, I keep going back to it, but I just love how simplistic some things in this car are. For example, the climate zone system. No dual zone, digitized, automated climate controls here. Just 3 simple knobs that do 3 simple things. Temperature over here on the left, your fan speed with automatic setting here in the middle, and your climate zones over here on the right, both with automatic functions for the fan and for the climate zone system as well. Your air conditioning recycling, you push on this button in the middle, push this one for AC, and you push this one over here for your rear defroster. As you come down into the lower part of the center console, 2 buttons over here on the right, those are your heated seat controls, 3-stage for each side. And then of course the all-important one, the controls for that power retracting hardtop. So in a weird twist, you push the trigger here up in order to fold down the top, but if you want to fold it back up with the e-brake on and the car parked, you can actually push this trigger down, and that is what folds the power hardtop back into the upright position. Now, of course, this wouldn't be a true MX-5 to me without a few little oddities, and the first of those is these detachable cup holders that you can put either here in the passenger's footwell with its little indention over here, or you can actually insert both of them into the little appropriate slots right here behind your arm. Although, if you are rowing through the gears like I love to with this rifle bolt like 6-speed manual transmission, you may tend to notice that your arm might hit those cup holders. So if your large Coca-Cola from McDonald's is sitting back here, which it will fit, by the way, you might actually have a point where you're going to knock it over. But if you don't want those cup holders sitting there, like I said, there is a space for them up here in the passenger footwell as well. But if you have a passenger sitting here, they may tend to hit their knees on that as well. So my best bet would be to put the cup holders here, and I'd rather hit my elbow on them than have someone hit their knee on them and actually break that off. Now, speaking of the 6-speed manual transmission that I have here, like I showed you before, it does have the backup camera, so you push down, go over to the left and up, and you just have a single view fisheye lens backup camera right here on the screen. No multi-adjustable settings, again, keeping with the simplistic theme of this car. Now, there are 2 little separate storage compartments in here. If perhaps during COVID-19 you need to store your face mask in here, that's about all it will hold. It will not hold anything like a smartphone, anything like that. But if you do want to put your phone in there, well, yeah, it's just not going to work. So if you want to put something a little bit bigger in here, you can actually go into this little storage compartment here in the back, which is lockable, by the way. And as you can see, I have just a little bit of my GoPro's camera equipment and the emergency manuals for this car tucked here into that little console. So not too much in the way of storage, and of course there's no glove box over here under the passenger side either. So not the most practical car, but definitely one of the most fun ones to drive. Well, everyone, that wraps up our review and drive of the 2020 Mazda MX-5 Miata Retractable Fastback. I do hope you guys enjoyed this review as much as I have, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up, and also while you're at it, hit that subscribe button down below, because trust me, it'll benefit the both of us in the end. But at the end of the day, I have to give the biggest thank you of all to my friends at Mazda USA for lending me this amazing little convertible to have for an entire week. But at the end of it all, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see y'all next time. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.